A 1969 Dodge Charger painted Confederate orange, the number 01 on the door, Dixie horns screaming, launching off a Georgia red dirt road, and hanging in the air for what feels like 3 full seconds before it lands, bounces, and keeps going, like nothing happened. You've seen that shot. Everyone has seen that shot. It is burned into the visual memory of anyone who grew up near a television set between 1979 and 1985. But here's what nobody ever tells you. The production destroyed so many of those Chargers that by the end of the show's run, the crew was pulling 1969 Dodges out of junkyards, school parking lots, and private driveways across the American South just to keep the cameras rolling. And the ones that actually survived? Their stories are stranger, sadder, and more remarkable than anything that ever happened on Hazzard County roads. Hi, my name is Johnny, and this is American Muscle. We chase down the real stories behind the most legendary cars in American history, what they were, what they did, and what actually happened to them when the spotlight went dark. Today we're going deep on the General Lee. Buckle up, because this one does not have a clean ending. The car itself. What made the General Lee? Before we talk about destruction, let's talk about why this car matters in the first place. Because the General Lee was not chosen by accident, and it was not just a prop, it was a casting decision. The 1969 Dodge Charger is one of the most visually aggressive automobiles ever produced in America. Second-generation Charger, built on Chrysler's B-body platform, and if you know anything about muscle car design, you already know what I'm talking about. The flying buttress C-pillars, the full-width taillights, the recessed grille that looks like it's already mad at you before you've done anything wrong. The body has this forward-leaning tension to it, like it's moving even when it's parked. No other year, no other model does what the 69 Charger does in profile. It is cinematic by factory specification. Under the hood in the Hero configuration, a 383 cubic inch V8. Not the 440, not the Hemi, the 383, which is, I'll be honest, a little anticlimactic given the mythology. But the 383 still produced north of 330 horsepower in street trim, and more importantly, it sounded right. American Muscle of that era didn't just perform, it announced itself. The General Lee announced itself from about 4 blocks away. The paint is Hemi orange, or close to it. The production used a custom mix that leans slightly more toward the red side than factory Hemi orange, which makes sense because straight Hemi orange reads almost yellow under certain lighting conditions, and you cannot have your hero car looking yellow on a 1979 television set. Someone in the art department made a smart call. The color that became synonymous with the General Lee is not something you could order from a Dodge dealer in 1969. It was purpose-built for the screen. The 01 on the door, white, clean, no outline. The Confederate battle flag on the roof, which we will absolutely come back to, because you cannot tell this story honestly without addressing it. The Dixie horn, which was not a stock option, not even close, and which had to be specially installed on every single car that was going to be used in a scene where you could hear it. The CB antenna. The welded shut doors, which meant that Bo and Luke Duke had to climb in through the windows every single time, which in hindsight seems exhausting, but which also became one of the most imitated moves in American television history. The name came from the show's creator, Guy Waldron, after General Robert E. Lee. The car as character was conceived from the very beginning, not retrofitted after the fact. This wasn't a case of a great car accidentally becoming memorable. It was designed to be the third lead, and it delivered. The production reality. How many were actually built? Now, the number. How many General Lees did the production of the Dukes of Hazzard actually go through? The honest answer is that nobody knows exactly. And that's not a hedge, that's the actual situation. Estimates from people directly involved in the production range from 250 to 320 total Chargers consumed across the show's 7-season run from 1979 to 1985. Some researchers put the number higher. I've seen 380 mentioned in enthusiast circles, though that figure is harder to verify. What everyone agrees on is that it was somewhere in that range, and that range is genuinely insane. Think about that for a second. The production of a single television show, not a film, not a franchise, a weekly CBS television program, consumed somewhere between 250 and 300 2019, 69 Dodge Chargers. At the time, those cars were not rare. They were used vehicles on the open market, 10 to 15 years old, often in rough shape, going for anywhere from a few hundred to a couple $1,000s, depending on condition. They were attainable. They were everywhere. And then, the Dukes of Hazzard arrived and began eating them. The sourcing operation the production ran is one of the more remarkable logistical stories in television history. By the second season, the easily findable Chargers in the Los Angeles area had been largely exhausted. The transportation coordinator, and this is documented in multiple production accounts, was running a nationwide search operation. Scouts in Georgia, in Tennessee, in the Carolinas, classified ads in local papers, deals made with junkyards from Macon to Memphis. Private sellers who had no idea their old beater was about to become the most famous car on American television, at least for one episode, and then a pile of scrap. By the later seasons, the car that Guy Waldron had chosen, because it was a 1969 Charger, specifically, that wide body, those buttressed pillars, that exact silhouette, was becoming genuinely scarce. Production records from the final 2 seasons describe sourcing meetings, where the team was grappling with the supply problem in real time. They were not finding hero-quality cars anymore. They were finding donors, cars that could be painted, numbered, fitted with a horn, and pointed at a jump ramp with a stunt driver and a prayer. The total number consumed by the production is part of the reason why clean, documented, survivor-quality 1969 Chargers are worth what they're worth today. The Dukes of Hazzard ate the supply. What remained got more valuable because of what the show had destroyed. The stunt work. Why they died so fast. Let's talk about why they died so fast. Because the jump is the reason, and the jump is more complicated than it looks. Stunt coordinator Reggie Caldwell and the team he built around the show developed what became essentially a standardized protocol for General Lee jumps. Ramp angle, vehicle speed, landing zone preparation, all of it calculated to produce the maximum visual impact, that 3-second hang time, that satisfying landing bounce, while keeping the stunt driver in one piece. They were very good at their jobs. The drivers survived, the cars did not. Here's the physics problem. When a vehicle the size and weight of a 1969 Charger, roughly 4,000 pounds of Detroit steel, launches off a ramp at the speeds required to produce a dramatic television jump, and then lands on its rear wheels, which is typically what happens. The force of that landing is distributed through a frame that was engineered in 1968 by people who were absolutely not thinking about jump ramps. The unibody construction of the Charger, which is part of what makes it such a beautiful car to look at, is exactly what makes it structurally vulnerable to that kind of impact loading. One jump, sometimes 2 if the landing was clean and the frame held. After that, the car was done. The frame was bent, the suspension geometry was gone, the body gaps were wrong. You could repaint it and put it back in a wide shot, but close-up work, interior work, anything where the camera was going to spend time with the car, you needed a fresh unit. And the show was doing multiple jumps per episode. There are documented episodes from the first 3 seasons that consumed 3 cars in a single week of production. 3 1969 Chargers, gone in 5 days. Do that math across a full season order, and you start to understand how the numbers got where they got. The cornfield crashes, the fence breaks, the ditch landings. Those 8 cars too, just more slowly. A cornfield crash might leave you with a car you could repair overnight. A poorly landed jump left you with public art. Interesting to look at, not drivable. What happened after the cameras stopped? So what survived? This is where the story gets genuinely complicated, and I want to be precise here because this is a space where mythology and documentation do not always overlap. The confirmed hero cars, the ones used for close-up work, interior scenes, the shots where the camera actually lived with the car, number somewhere between 2 and 4 units, depending on which production accounts you trust and which definition of hero car you're using. These are the cars that were handled differently, maintained more carefully, kept off the jump ramps. The cars the audience actually fell in love with. After the show wrapped in 1985, those cars went different directions, and this is where the trail splits into about a dozen separate threads, some of which are documented, some of which are rumor, and some of which have been chased by General Lee researchers for 40 years without a clean resolution. One of the most documented surviving General Lees is the car that spent decades in the hands of John Schneider himself. Schneider, who played Bo Duke, acquired one of the production cars after filming ended and kept it for years as part of his personal collection. He has talked about it publicly on multiple occasions. That car has known provenance, known custody history, and has appeared at fan events and car shows across the country. It is as close to a confirmed, verified survivor as this story has. Warner Brothers, which held the production rights through its television division, retained several cars after the show ended and donated them over the years to various institutions. The television and film industry was marginally better about documentation by the mid-1980s than it had been a decade earlier, though not dramatically so. Some of those donations came with paperwork. Some came with the car and a handshake and a story. The Volo Auto Museum in Volo, Illinois has held General Lee cars over the years, some with solid documentation, some with murkier lineage. The museum is a serious institution with a legitimate collection, and they've been transparent about the varying levels of documentation across their inventory. The honest answer from responsible General Lee collectors is almost always the same. This car has this documentation, here is what we can verify, here is what we cannot. The auction trail. Big money, bigger myths. The auction trail is where things get particularly interesting, and I'll be blunt with you. It is also where things get particularly unreliable. Barrett Jackson has run multiple cars presented as General Lees across various events over the years. The sale prices on the verified ones, cars with legitimate production documentation, traceable VINs, and clean chains of custody, have been serious. We are talking about cars that have crossed the block north of $300,000 with full documentation. The General Lee name, attached to the right car with the right paperwork, commands a premium that reflects 40+ years of cultural weight. But here's the thing that I think about every time I see a General Lee cross an auction block. The production built somewhere between 250 and 320 of these cars. That is a lot of orange Chargers in the world. And not all of them were destroyed. Some were damaged and repaired. Some were sold into private hands after filming without any documentation at all. Some were used as display cars at car dealerships and shopping malls in the early 1980s and then just kind of drifted. That means there are General Lee cars in private hands right now, possibly dozens of them, with no documentation, no provenance, nothing connecting them to the production except the paint and the number and the horn. Some of those owners know exactly what they have. Some have no idea. And the overlap between documented production cars and undocumented production cars and cars that someone simply painted orange and put a 01 on is, depending on who you ask, genuinely impossible to fully untangle. If you see a General Lee at a local car show with a compelling story and no paperwork, I'm not saying the owner is lying to you. I'm saying the paperwork situation on these cars is complicated by design, by accident, by time, and by the sheer volume of cars the production consumed. Do your research. Ask for the VIN. Hire somebody who knows what they're looking at. The controversy, the flag problem. Now, the flag. You cannot tell the story of the General Lee in 2025 without talking about what happened in 2012, and then again, more severely in 2015. The Confederate battle flag on the roof of the General Lee was a creative choice made in 1978 by people who, frankly, were not thinking about anything except visual iconography and regional identity branding. The show was set in the fictional Hazzard County, Georgia. The Duke boys were Southern. The flag was shorthand. That was the full extent of the conversation as far as the historical record shows. By 2012, TV Land had quietly removed the Dukes of Hazzard from its rotation. By 2015, following the massacre at Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and the national conversation about Confederate symbolism that followed, the situation escalated quickly. Warner Brothers announced it would stop licensing General Lee merchandise that included the Confederate flag. Die-cast model manufacturers pulled their products. The show effectively became difficult to commercially engage with in any form that included the roof graphic. What did this do to the collector market? It is genuinely complicated. Values on documented, legitimate hero cars did not collapse. Serious collectors who understand what they have were not suddenly uninterested in owning a piece of significant American television history. But the broader cultural visibility of the car, the casual enthusiasm, the merchandise, the easy celebration, that contracted. And the controversy made some previously public owners of General Lee cars significantly more private about their collections. John Schneider has spoken about the flag debate publicly and at length, and his position has been consistent. The car means one thing to him, the flag means another thing entirely, and conflating them does a disservice to both conversations. You can agree or disagree with that position, but it is the position of the man who drove the car, and it is part of the story. The unsolved ones. Cars still missing now. For the part of this story that keeps General Lee researchers up at night. The hero cars. The ones that should be findable. The ones with production histories that were documented at least partially. Cars that left Warner Brothers custody at some point in the late 1980s or early 1990s and then just stopped being traceable. There are General Lee cars that were confirmed in private hands as recently as the mid-2000s and whose current whereabouts are not publicly known. Not destroyed, not at auction, not in a museum, just private. Sitting in a garage somewhere in the American South or Midwest, owned by someone who may or may not understand the full scope of what they're holding. The barn find mythology is real in this space. The Dukes of Hazzard ended in 1985. A car sold out of the production in 1986 to a private buyer who used it as a show car for a few years, and then parked it when life got busy. That car has been sitting for close to 40 years now. It is not unreasonable. It is not even unusual. It is exactly how movie and television cars disappear and then get found. The ones most likely still out there are the damaged but surviving stunt cars that were sold off quickly after the show ended with minimal documentation. Nobody was treating a banged-up orange Charger from a television production like an artifact in 1985. The Dukes of Hazzard was a show, not yet a cultural institution. The cars were used vehicles. They went where used vehicles go. If one of them is in a barn in Tennessee right now, the person who owns it might know, might not, might have a story from their father about buying a weird orange Dodge back in the day without really knowing why it had a number on the door. That is not a fantasy scenario. That is just American automotive history being exactly what it always is. What the General Lee actually means. Here is where we land with the General Lee. Somewhere between 250 and 300 2019-69 Dodge Chargers were consumed by a single television show between 1979 and 1985. A handful survived with documentation. A handful more survived without it. The ones that can be verified have sold for serious money and sit in serious collections. The ones that can't be verified are scattered across private hands in a way that may never be fully mapped. The car itself is one of the most recognizable vehicles ever put on an American screen. The jump is still the jump. The horn is still the horn. The silhouette is still one of the most purely aggressive shapes Detroit ever produced, and it always will be. But the full accounting of what happened to all of them, where every orange Charger from that production ended up, which ones survived, which ones were crushed, which ones are in a garage in Georgia right now with a tarp over them. That story is not finished. It may never be finished. And honestly, for a car built to launch off a dirt road and hang in the air for 3 seconds with Dixie blaring, that feels about right. We go deep on the cars that made America what it is. The famous ones, the forgotten ones, and the ones that are still sitting somewhere waiting to be found. My name is Johnny,